Welcome to Small Business, Big Network, the podcast for small business owners who want big results from their networking. I'm Liz Drury, a freelance voiceover artist who knows that if you're not working, then networking could help. Naomi Riches, MBE, is a motivational speaker, performance coach and Olympic medal winner who finds that networking is invaluable for her business. Thank you very much for being my podcast guest today, Naomi.
Lovely to be here.
Now, you're known as a motivational speaker and a performance coach, but you've had quite a journey. So let's start at the beginning. Tell me about what your school days were like.
God, that was a lifetime ago. School was challenging. I was diagnosed with an eye condition called achromatopsia when I was just a few months old. And I guess from that moment, my parents knew that everything was going to be a challenge. It wasn't going to be, particularly smooth through school and even life. They didn't know what was ahead, really. So achromatopsia means that I have absolutely no colour vision. I struggle very much with light. I'm very light sensitive and I lack quite a lot of detail. And school was a challenge. I think, anybody listening would probably agree that the integration of disabled people into schools, mainstream schools in the 80s and 90s wasn't great. Yeah. The technology wasn't there. I honestly think technology has made such a difference to that now because, black and white photocopiers back then, it was awful. Yeah. You ended up with about 6 shades of grey and trying to then differentiate when you had everything enlarged onto A3 in large print so that you could see it. It just made it really hard. Yeah. And often the teachers didn't try, didn't make an effort. So there were some that were amazing and they will always stick in my mind, but also kids in my class, my peers, were quite nasty because in a way a visual impairment is an invisible disability. They can't quite comprehend what's going on. Yeah. They just know that you get a bit more attention and that you sit at the front of the class. But I think the thing that also baffled them was that I was incredibly good at art. And they were going, what, you're meant to be blind, how come you're better at art than we are, type thing. So it was a challenge. But my mum fought. She always was coming into school and saying, why aren't you doing this? How come you can't get this sorted? She was a real fighter. She was a real lioness. And I then ended up going to college in Worcester when I was 16 to do my A-levels, which the college was for blind and visually impaired youngsters, run by the RNIB. And it was absolutely the making of me, being able to be in that environment where almost I was less disabled than everybody else. Yeah. And people were saying, Naomi, can you help me with this? And I'm going, what, me help you? That's all backwards. I'm not used to that. So yeah, that was great. That was I suppose that in a nutshell was my education.
And what did you envisage yourself doing when you were younger? What did you think you would go on and do as a job?
Oh, goodness knows. I think I wanted to be an artist. I mean, one thing Mum and Dad were always incredibly good at was follow your dreams, do what makes you happy. They didn't put any pressure on me. They were always proud of whatever I achieved, and it was wonderful. But I think looking back in hindsight, which is a great thing to have, I can honestly say that I suppose the one thing I didn't want to be when I was growing up was defined by my eyesight. I didn't want to be the blind girl. I didn't want to be the girl who struggled, the girl who needed help. So maybe more than anything, more than wanting to be an artist or an astronaut or a doctor or all those things that youngsters want to be, I wanted to be not defined by the thing that everyone thought was holding me back.
Yeah. And so what did you do after A-levels? What was your next step?
So my dad was an engineer and whenever I had a school project where I had to make something, Dad and I would do it together. We'd build little things and I'd take them in and do really well with those. And I loved creating and making and building. And I was also really into photography, which is, I struggled a little bit with focusing, getting the focus right on the lens, but I still enjoyed it. And I went and did an art foundation year in London, and then I started off thinking I wanted to do photography and ended up deciding that I wanted to do jewellery making and silversmithing. And I ended up at Bucks New University doing a design, metalwork and jewellery degree, which I graduated from in 2006. So yeah, totally mad. And so, what big magnifying glass a lot of the time.
Yeah. and what was your first job after graduating?
So I didn't. My first. Okay, I'll have to go skip forwards and then go backwards. My first job after graduating was actually when I started to work for the Youth Sport Trust in 2013.
Okay.
There's a lot of years in between
Yeah.
2006 and 2013. And this is probably going to be your next question,
Yeah.
but is the best way to go. I got involved with the rowing team in 2004 whilst I was still at university. So rowing became part of my life before I'd graduated, and the way that the rowing was going, and it was a brand new sport, rowing for disabled individuals, so adaptive rowing. It was new, and it wasn't a Paralympic sport at that time. And so I got the phone call in 2004 because I tried rowing briefly when I was at college from a guy called Simon who said, "Naomi, I hear you're tall, you're visually impaired, and you're a girl, and we'd like you to come and trial for the Great Britain Disabled Rowing Team." And I went, "Okay, that could be cool." So I did that, and we won what they call Paralympic status. The International Paralympic Committee voted rowing in as a new sport to debut at Beijing in 2005. So by then we started to get funding, and rowing could be done as a full-time, not quite a job.
Yeah.
Doing a sport full time is more of a life choice.
Yes.
Life choice, if I'm honest. But I started doing that straight out of university. Really, that's where it went. And I didn't need to have another job alongside it.
So if this was sort of such a new sport, how did you actually come across it? Was it something that was promoted through your university?
No. So one of my friends, called Paul, he was at college a year above me, and he was in the team already. And because FISA, so the international governing body for rowing, so with football you've got FIFA, with swimming you've got FINA, and with rowing you've got FISA. So FISA decided that the adaptive rowing had to be a mixed boat.
Yeah.
So cocks could be either gender. They're the small person that directs and steers and shouts. And then the 4 rowers had to be 2 boys and 2 girls.
Yeah.
To get more inclusion and more people into the sport, because getting disabled people to row at the time was quite hard. So trying to get an all boys crew and an all girls crew was really tricky. So they made sure that they had a mixture in the crew to enable the boats to be created.
And I mean, I guess certainly with visual impairment, there are different levels of visual impairment. So how do you make sure that it's fair for everybody?
Well, what we used to do actually, and the rule's been changed because they realised it didn't make that much of a difference, was everybody who was visually impaired had to wear goggles which blacked out all your vision.
Right.
So we started off with these horrible big ski goggles, the massive ones that cover half your face. They were not good for the tan lines, I can
No.
promise you. But then eventually I being the creative person I am, my dad being an engineer, I redesigned them, and I bought ski goggles, which are a lot more streamlined and attractive looking, and basically use mastic on the inside of them to black them out, so you couldn't see anything.
Wow.
So I had to race in those. So everybody was visually impaired, had as little sight as each other, I guess.
Yeah. And so when did you find out that you were going to be part of the team for 2012?
Oh, not until a few months before. They trial you all year round. There's always, you do so well and you go to sort of world championships or whatever, but that's then it's kind of, I suppose it's like a sales team in a company. Once you come to the end of your financial year, your scoreboard goes back to 0. So once you've come back from a world championships, whilst your result there will denote the level of funding you'll receive, it doesn't mean that you will automatically make it into the next boat on the next year. So because more people come into the sport, more people trial, and suddenly somebody turns up who's got the same disability as you, who's 2 inches taller, and they're a bit faster. So then you have to compete against them. So it's all very competitive all year round. So the final trials for 2012 were, I think, in the May before the games.
Wow.
So it gave us 4 months. But the crew that was selected was the crew that had been at the World Championships last year. We all retained our seats, which was amazing. So we had already been together for well over a year.
So what was the run-up to the Olympics like? Oh,
it was crazy. It was crazy. I can't believe it was almost exactly 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It's absolutely mad. The Olympics was on when we were in our training camp in Spain. So the Paralympics started, I think on the last day of August.
Yeah.
On 31st of August was the opening ceremony, I think. And we were on day, or was it the 30th? I can't remember anyway, but we were on day, or the 2nd of September was our finals day. And I remember being in Spain and all legging it back from the lake after training session to be back to be able to watch one of our British crews racing at the Olympics, and knowing that, oh my gosh, that's going to be our stage in just a month's time. It's, you know, watching Helen and Heather win the first gold of the games and winning it in the pair for GB. It was magical, and the kind of the fever that kind of gripped the UK. It's like hard to really, you know, get that back. I think there was a bit of that this year with the Commonwealths in Birmingham. Definitely, it definitely gripped the nation a little bit. But 2012 was incredibly special in that way. I think partly because we'd gone, oh no, it's you know, we've got a disaster with tickets and a disaster with this, that, and the other, and we all sort of downplayed it, typical British style. Oh, it's going to be awful. It's going to be a disaster. And then we were going, oh no, it's brilliant. It's really good. Everyone loves it. So yeah, it was an absolutely magical summer.
And what was race day like, and the race itself?
Race day. So we got down early. We did a pre-paddle. So we went out and we did sort of 2 or loop and a half. So about sort of 5-6 kilometres. Just tuning up, just getting used to the water. The crowds had already started arriving, so people were already screaming for you from the bandstand, you know, and it was lovely. And just starting to soak in the atmosphere. We'd made it straight through to finals because we'd come first in our heats, but the Germans had also come first in their heat, so we were the biggest competition, was the Germans and us. Came off the water, went and had second breakfast, because obviously we'd had one at the hotel before we left, and then we did a load of stretching, and we all had our individual land warm-ups, because I was visually impaired. James is visually impaired with a slightly different visual impairment to me. Pam has arthritis, which causes her joint pain a lot of the time, and Dave had nerve damage in one of his arms and really almost fused ankles, so didn't really have much bend. So we all had our own impairments or limitations, and our physio worked so hard, and our coaches worked so hard to make sure that we all had our individual warm-ups that would all get all our bodies in shape to be able to deliver what we needed to deliver, but all very individual. And then we got on the water about 40 minutes before the race started. So it's an awful lot of time for a 3 minutes 19 second race, really. So I always try and say to the youngsters in the rowing club, you know how important your warm-up is. It's really important to get your warm-up in, and people underestimate how important that is, actually.
Yeah. So when it came to the actual race then, when was it you realised that you won? Did you know straight away?
No, absolutely not. I knew that the Germans were in the lead until about 300 metres to go, and then I didn't actually have a clue what was going on, because the crowd, the noise from the stands, there was almost, and I've heard Catherine Granger talking about this as well, it was almost like the water was fizzing with the energy and the noise coming from both sides and everybody, most people there were shouting for GB, which is amazing. And it was so loud that I literally couldn't, and I've got these goggles on so I can't see what's going on, and I literally could not hear the German crew next to us, and I could not hear Lily delivering our race plan through the speakers in the boat. I couldn't hear a darn thing, and I didn't even hear the finish line buzzer. All I knew was that Dave had stopped rowing because he was sat in front of me and sort of collapsed onto my feet, and I thought, it's over. We've crossed the finish line. And then Pam told me where we'd come. But wow, it was very surreal, because you're not allowed to take your goggles off either until one of the umpires holds up the flag, says, that race is,
which you can't see,
which I can't see. And funnily enough, so really, really interesting and really lovely. This year just gone was my first year as chair of Henley Women's Regatta, which is just held just 2 weeks before Henley Royal. And one of the umpires, Richard Dennis, and I was sat in his launch following a few races, and he said, you know, I was the admiral that held up the white flag at the end of your race in 2012. And I went, no, I didn't know it was you. And it was just so nice to have that little moment of memory between us, that he was the one that said, you guys have won. GB've won. You know, amazing. And that was just, really, really special.
Yeah. So what came next after the Olympics then?
I did one more year. And I found it a real struggle, a real slog, because post-games blues, I mean, I'd been aiming for London for, over 7 years, because of when we won the bid and knew that London was the host city for 2012. And I decided to retire after my 2013 World Championships, and thinking, I have no idea what to do with my life. I can make jewellery and I can row quickly. What sort of career is that? I didn't know what to do. But we're very fortunate. The English Institute of Sport and a lot of the things we have access to as athletes. And I had a fantastic lifestyle performance advisor called Mel. And I'd worked quite a bit with her. And also, after 2008 Paralympics, where we took the bronze medal, one of the key people in British rowing, Anna Marie Phelps, she asked me to go and talk to her kids in their private school in the middle of London. Little people, sort of reception up to year 4 or whatever. And I thought, what on earth am I going to talk to them about? And I created this little story of me being at school and going into rowing and struggling and having all these battles to fight. And then I came back from the Paralympics with a bronze medal, and I found that they were absolutely glued to my every word. And I loved it. I was there all day. I spoke to every class. I absolutely loved it. Just that feeling of, they might remember something I've said to them when they have a tough time, and I might help them by having said something useful. And so I did a few more talks, and I really enjoyed that. And I often in my capacity as an athlete found myself being a bit of a mentor to people that were newer into the squad, because I've been there pretty much since the beginning. Everyone else that had been there in 2004 and 5 and 6 had left. They'd gone. They'd been, someone had beaten them at trials, or they decided to retire or whatever. And I'd been there the longest time and had the most experience. And I found myself being, without choosing to be necessarily, but really enjoying it, being a kind of a mentor that would help the younger, not necessarily actually younger, but the younger athletes come up to speed and feel comfortable. And I realised, talking to Mel, that's something I like doing, helping people to achieve what they want to achieve. And so, when I retired, I went, and this is come back to the Youth Sport Trust. I went to the Youth Sport Trust and worked on their athlete mentor programme, where I got to go into schools and work with young people for a couple of years. And then alongside that, I started working at a company called Thomas International as a brand ambassador, because they had just started Thomas Sport, was a new sort of area of their company, and they're a psychometric assessment provider. And I'd always had an interest in psychology, but because I always felt at school I wasn't academically gifted enough, when in fact it was just that I didn't get the support I needed. I'd never really followed it up. So I started working at Thomas in 2014 part-time. I was with the Youth Sport Trust, so I started to do a lot of the things I loved, which was helping, mentoring, empowering young people, or not so young people, to be their best selves. And granted, every day your best self can change, but it's, that's something that's really enjoyed. And I was at Thomas then for 6 years, and then I was made redundant after they had a restructure in July 2020. I'd been furloughed for a few months because of COVID, and got made redundant and decided, well, I can stand on a stage and talk to people. There aren't any stages at the moment because no one's allowed to spend time with anybody. And actually, when I was made redundant, one of the people I got in touch with, Marissa Holden, she said to me, let's go for a drink. Let's have a chat. And she said, look, Naomi, I'm a member of these 2 groups. One's called Athena and one's called BNI. And they're both networking, but they're both very different. Come and visit. And I thought, what have I got to lose? I haven't got a clue what's going on. I'm in this suddenly big, wide, self-employed world. I've got no regular income. I've just got to do something. So I went to both of those groups. And I enjoyed both for different reasons. But the one that I am still a member of is BNI, which is a fantastic group, really, because it gives you just the support and asks you for tangible results and holds you accountable, and it's just brilliant. And it's really, really helped me to feel confident in what I'm doing.
Yeah. So tell me something about the work that you do as a performance coach. Who is it that you're helping, and how are you helping them?
So, and this is where the coaches in the BNI group will say, you need to be more specific about who you want to talk to. I don't need to be specific, because everybody, whether you are a single mum running your own business out of your back room, or whether you are a multinational company CEO, millionaire person, you can still always deliver a better performance. And I'm not talking about the profits you make at work, and I'm not talking about any of those things. I'm talking about you and how you deliver yourself to the people you work with every single day. And if you can deliver yourself in a better way, you'll get buy-in from more people, you'll build better relationships with more people, because self-awareness is just such a hugely powerful tool. If you've got it, and you can tap into your own self-awareness and understand the impact you are having on other people and the impact they're having on you and why, it's such a powerful thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, all sorts of people, really.
Now, within BNI, you can only have one person from each kind of industry, so one accountant, one solicitor, and so on. Now, I believe that you changed your seat within your BNI. So what were you to start with, and what did you become?
So I was the motivational speaker in my chapter, and I became the performance coach through having a conversation with another BNI member who was saying, I'm feeling really sort of demotivated. We went for a drink, bit of a theme. Yeah. And she was saying, I'm not feeling great at the moment. I'm not feeling very driven. I'm not entirely sure, of what's going on and how motivated I am. And I'm just nosy. I started asking questions, and by the end of it, she was saying, I feel really motivated now. Oh. How did you do that? And I said, I didn't do anything. I just asked questions. You found the answers yourself. And she said, well, why on earth are you the speaker when you could be the coach? Because being a coach and you build a relationship with a business, or you build a relationship with an individual, you're more likely to get speeches and speaking events off the back of that. It's a lot harder to go in cold as a speaker and then go and do coaching with them afterwards. It seems to work better the other way around. So I went for performance coaching, and the lovely Linda Gale made sure that was put on the system, because it's not the same as life coaching and it's not the same as business coaching. So I don't then block my chapter for either of those two.
Yes.
There are crossovers, and actually I find myself and the business coach in my chapter, Sarah Grimstick, we work really well together, and we're able to refer to each other, because somebody might come to her saying they think they need a business coach, and then actually she says, well, at the moment I think you need a bit more of motivation and figuring yourself out and your direction out, and then I can tell you practically how to then achieve your goals with your business, but I think you need a bit of Naomi before you need a bit of me. And the same the other way around.
Yeah.
So it works really, really well.
Yeah. And so are you enjoying what you're doing now? I'm
loving it. I'm absolutely loving it. It's always different. I love people. So granted, if I spent 3 or 4 hours at Virgin Management running a sort of a high performing teams workshop the other week, and it had been so long since I'd done sort of something like that because of all the lockdowns and things like that. Yeah. I've done a lot of stuff online, which is great because I found that I'm able to deliver those things online as well. But I had to come down and lie down. I'm exhausted. And all I did was get a train into London, train back out again, and deliver something for 3 and a bit hours and meet some people. And now I just want to lie down in a dark room with a damp cloth over my eyes. What's going on? But no, it's really good fun. Knowing that you've had a positive impact, and that every business person with whatever they do will feel exactly the same. When you feel that you've delivered, whether it's your printing, whether it's you finished somebody's accounts, or whether whatever it is you've done for your client, when you know you've done a good job and they feel better for having done your thing, it feels great. Yeah. And it's just wonderful to be able to be part of it.
Yeah. I was just wondering, do you meet many other people with disabilities when you're networking? Because I don't meet that many.
No, I don't actually. And I'd never really thought about it. I probably should have done, shouldn't I? But no, I don't. But actually, there's one thing that especially something like BNI that has such a clear structure, it really helps you to hone your skills in that way. And you can see the difference that it's making if you use it correctly and you do all the things that are expected. I mean, I'll be honest, I was completely daunted, a little bit overwhelmed when I first started BNI, because I thought, oh my God, how can I do all these numbers of referrals and all these things? And I found it a little bit like, oh, I don't think this is for me. I think this is too much pressure. It's not. Yeah. Because as soon as you start to get it and understand it, it starts happening without you even realising it. Before you even think about it, you suddenly made a referral. And you're like, oh, I just did that, didn't I? Yes, I did. So it's one of those, it's great, it works. You just got to give it a little bit of time to kind of get your mind, start to connect those dots in that way.
Yeah. So finally then, Naomi, if people want to find out more about you, either your motivational speaking or your coaching, where's the best place for people to find you?
So the best place at the moment is LinkedIn, and I'm also on Instagram. I use LinkedIn and Instagram mainly for business. I need to get better at Twitter. I'll be told off by my business coach for not doing as enough twittering. But I have a website coming. It will be. I have a good feeling about 2023. I think autumn and winter 2022 are going to be for me to sort of lay my foundations. So I've got the lovely Sian Martin from my chapter, who's a graphic designer and web designer. We're going to work together to get that up and running, and that's really exciting. So yeah, there will be more to come, and obviously I will make sure that that's all over LinkedIn so that people know it's there. But yeah, LinkedIn's probably the best place at the moment.
Lovely.
Or BNI members, get in touch, connect with me through the BNI Connect.
Of course. Lovely. Thank you very much for being my guest, and I look forward to seeing the new website when it launches.
You're so welcome. Really lovely to chat to you.
Thanks for listening to Small Business, Big Network. If you found this podcast useful, please do rate, review and subscribe. And don't forget to share it with the rest of your network too.